Alrighty. Hello there. Let me fool with my levels a little bit. There we go. Very good. So hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I'm doing one more YouTube live stream for December, and we're going to be coding the plugin ZNotch. And don't mind me while I fuss with my tools and things. And we're going to get busy with it. I actually don't have audio patched through to this because I was thinking maybe something that I can do once I'm finished coding the plugin is I'll fire up like this modular synthesizer and turn it on, and we can fool with that a little bit. And I'm just kind of evolving where everything stands. One of the things I'm going to be trying to do is I really would like to get some of my lighting and stuff like that. Here, let me bounce over to this. I'd like to get some of my lighting and special effects and chat in showing on the stream in a better configuration, because it's not great what I've got. It's okay, but it's not really like Twitch grade coolness, what you would call it. And there are some limitations to what I'm willing to do in there's some limitations in what I'm willing to do as far as Twitch is concerned, because one of the more notable systems for having chat and notifications and all of that is a bit of a ripoff of OBS and has not gotten along well with everybody on the back of that. But that's a whole other story. Suffice it to say, I have a dedicated little computer that is sitting under the laptop that you see me doing stuff on here. And it used to be set up for a, it's one of the final Intel Mac Minis. And I got it because that was what I was using for a while there. And then I sent it over to work as a graphics tablet-based computer, and then didn't actually do any of that because I'm not much of a visual artist on the whole. Or at least I don't do much of that. And so now it is living in my, sort of inside my studio desk. And what I can do is send its output to the same input that you see the laptop here operating on. And if I can do that, it means that I can also run like Twitch integration stuff, like Restream will let you do some things along those lines. And that means I can have Restream sort of go full screen and display its messages and things and anything like that over a black background. And then I can composite that at a higher resolution inside the, for example, I don't think I can, no, I can kind of see the best that I can do with this display is 1600 by 900 because it is an older, well, actually no, it seems as if it would try to do something else, but we're not going to try that right now. I'm talking about an entirely different computer here. So that's what this one is able to do. And it's because they're both like 900 and the laptop will not give me HD. It's not big enough to. It's not new enough to. But the Mac Mini absolutely could. And it can do a little bit better than that. And it can send a little bit better than that to the switcher, the video switcher that, you know, does this. And so I can Luma key stuff from the computer over a dead black background onto the images from the cameras, possibly while switching them around. And then what I need is some kind of little small monitor that I can tuck somewhere that I can see it. And that way I'll be able to see chat messages. Because otherwise it goes to the video feed, but I won't actually be able to see anything anybody's saying. And that's defeating the purpose more than a little bit. And yeah, it's a work in progress. But that's my hope. That's what I'm going to be building up in 2022. And I'm kind of looking forward to diving into it. Just this morning, I was taking down some of my flashy light strips. You know, as you might know, my main lighting can do this. And for that reason, I'm thinking it'll be a nice, that's one of the ones I need to be working on in 2022. In fact, there is such a plugin, and it is called Point. And it's very old, and it's kind of freaky and aggressive. It is not an easy plugin to use, but that is absolutely what it is. It absolutely is a transient shaper plugin. And you can, I'm pretty sure it's out. I'm pretty sure I have done it. I can find out in just a moment by looking at my own. Yeah, this is the one you want. It's spelled P-O-Y in these because when I originally built it, I had a feeling that maybe that was a reserved word somewhere and I was running into weird bugs and problems. And so I spelled it funny. But this is the one that you'll be wanting. And it is available for everything and is fully up to date. It's just that it's an older plugin, and I could do with making a new version that's more approachable, because this is one of the ones that can really mess with you. Like, you can make very out of control noises using it, so be careful with it as it goes. That's why it would be good to revise it. But yeah, what we're going to be doing today is the AU version of the final Z-Plane plugin. And for the 5 of you that are here, you're not necessarily going to see this next Sunday. I might just have another plan, but I'll be wanting to have this available. So let's get ready to do it. ZNotch is the original one, and I'm going to be basing it off of ZLopez 2. So we're going to fire that up, and then we're going to make a new project and do our little routine. See? And we're going to make it ZNotch2. And that'll be, this is a fairly sought after plugin. People would like to see it. But this is a fine sort of farewell to YouTube streaming. I feel as if it never really caught on. And part of that is, lack of promotion or whatever. And part of it is I'm just not sure that YouTube is the place for hanging out with somebody. Even if, oh God, somebody gave me $5. Well, thank you. It's maybe not exactly the place for doing stuff. Oh, Marquis Gerald Scott. Well, thank you so much. And like I said earlier on, when there were 2 people here instead of 4, my intention with the YouTube channel is maybe to start taking it in the, like a lot of the YouTube channels that I like are channels where the person doing them is making a rather well-produced video with a lot of stuff. Like, they do a full soundtrack and they do editing and all these intros and outros and things. And it looks very slick and cool. I have the technology for doing that stuff. In fact, I have the technology for doing quite a lot of that stuff, more than you might suspect. Like, I could do animated characters with a bit of work and practice. And that too is something that I could share on a Twitch stream. but I just feel like YouTube is more suited for making fairly produced videos and things. The plugin videos might actually end up becoming more like that. Like back in the day when I was doing, on another channel, I was doing Minecraft videos and things, and I had an intro splash and things like that, and have kind of gone off doing those things. But it feels very much as if the identity of these services, for anybody who's interested, is on YouTube, you go to the extra effort, you put in bling, you put in flashy things and so on. And they're things that you put into the production rather than stuff that comes out of like an elaborate streaming setup. And the videos can be somewhat, they can be medium long, but bottom line being, it's about making a produced, fancy looking video scenario. And I've got to where I have the capacity to do that. I'm just not in the habit of doing it. Whereas Twitch seems to be the more natural home for hanging out with somebody as they build a thing. And that's what I've been doing on Mondays. I might change my schedule around a little bit as well. Oh, don't worry about it. If you're subscribing to Airwindows, what you're going to be getting is the quickest possible notification of new plugins and things coming out. So you might just, you might find that to be a good thing. That will tend to happen in the evening on Sunday, and you can be the first to know before I even post the, when I post it to my website. In order to post it to the website properly, I need to have the video up so that I can copy its embed code and build it into WordPress there. So basically, there is no faster way to hear about new stuff that I've made than on the Airwindows YouTube channel. And there is also no faster way to see videos of other stuff that I make. And the Twitch thing is going to be for folks hanging out, anybody who does want to hang out. If not, I'll just turn on the cameras and go and do my work. But it's going to be about that, and it's going to be more along the lines of working out what I'm doing so that I can comfortably engage with that stuff and start just, the idea is you can just show up and start building and doing things. Some people get a lot of mileage out of that, other people not so much. But if you have like on Twitch, the thing is, if you have a desired thing to be doing, and you have the Twitch side of things sorted out to the point where like you've got the messages showing up on screen, and you've got like a reasonably pretty look and so on. And if you're a musical type person, you've got like your modular synthesizer in your studio view for if you're like laying down guitar tracks or whatever. And you're all set to do all of those things and need to be ready to get that going. At which point you're all set, and people wandering by the Twitch chat can be like, oh, that looks fancy. I guess I'll hang out and see what's happening. And at that point, if they're hanging out with you, it's just a question of whether they're enjoying hanging out with you. But the Twitch thing is much more along the lines of, can you do a bunch of hours without burning yourself out and not being able to continue? And is your basic system, like your video streaming system or whatever, appealing looking and neat enough? And do you notice when people show up and say, oh, hi, I am thus and so? And being able to notice and recognize and greet people is very important. So there is a thing that I can try to build, and I don't know to what extent I'm going to be literally coding, but I could. And it might just become, because I've done live streaming for years with things like getting together my music system and so on. And it's always like, it's okay. I learned a thing from Brian Eno in a documentary on him. And he talked about how he would advance into a state of experimentation and doing novel things and then retreat to a space of safety. And that was a very useful observation, because what he was talking about actually does work for me as well. I can advance into the experimentation, but then when I make a video or something like that, or especially if I'm doing the plugin demonstration videos, it works better for me to like dial it back to where I'm like, okay, I know how this system works, and now let me do something normal and easy. And I'll do that, and then the end result, the music that I make, is more pleasing than if I'm trying to make everything extraordinarily like experimental and cool and stuff. Let's continue doing little bits of this while I talk. As I might as well. Is anybody's guess as to how long this stream is going to go? We'll see. People take a while to filter in, and then people don't necessarily have the stamina for hanging out for, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And for a streamer, that's a given. You normally are going to be doing that. And oh no, it's going to be ZNotch. I'm sorry. So ZNotch would be ZNot, and then the next letter up is ZNO. And we'll start walking through this stuff that we need to do. Come on, you can move over here. Because this is our walking through process and how we make these things work. And yeah, if I'm able to finish this up, I may very well decide to, there was something I wanted to do in Bespoke, so I could do that. It would be a little glimpse of what it's going to be like when I'm doing the Twitch streaming and the kinds of stuff that I'm probably going to have going on. I can even switch the lights over to resemble what it'll look like. But for now, let's just focus on this. We're going to set our parameters. And everything that I'm doing here is for the purpose of getting a copy of ZLowPass that's called ZNotch and that works and runs, at which point I will switch it over to being the notch filter. And there's going to be future plugins that'll be a little bit more complicated than this. But what we're doing here is definitely just doing all of the Z filters in order with a little bit of a pause, because when I did ZLowPass 2, I gave it an extra week for the purpose of letting people bring up objections and stuff. And nobody did, but I did actually find out that I had not initialized a variable properly. And so I had to change that at the last minute, but I did change it. It was this one here. The original version of ZLowPass 2 didn't have that, and it needed to, so I fixed it. And now let's see, just below overall scale, we'll take everything because it's consistent with what we're going to have in the other one. And off we go. And as usual, we have to build it twice. It's not going to find any of this stuff the first time around. It's a quirk on the build system of this laptop. It's always going to do this because it's not building things in the proper order. I moved the stuff around and it didn't help, so I'm not exactly sure what you would do to fix that. Observe the new try, and it works just fine. Now go into our build folder. Oh, hang on. Well, oh, it's the wrong one. Silly me. It's this one we want to go into. And here is something that I'm going to be bringing out, and it is called amend loop sessions in here, but I'm going to be calling it production drums. And you're not going to be hearing it on the main speakers because right now it's just playing over the laptop. Because I'm not doing the full audio this time around, but I play drums with my most recent miking and recording setup and got the biggest, best sound I possibly could. And I play drums over the amen loop in my headphones without actually playing the amen break because that guy's a better drummer than me. But I was able to pull off a pretty straightforward beat, and there's just enough going on in it, including a certain amount of like breakiness, that I believe you could edit this and grab little bits of whatever. Like that's very straightforward. There's bits of fills. There's bits of breakiness. Little bits of fills here and there. And you could grab stuff out of this, you know, copy it to a file, save it to the desktop, drag it onto Bespoke and place it in one of those drum player thingies. And generate your own breakbeat track off of this, and anything that you do to speed up or slow down the tracks to correspond to how the amen break adapts to different tempos, which is a classic part of how that works, you'd be able to do with this track, except for it starts out at 96K and is a really high fidelity recording. But what we're going to do with this right now is test out our new plugin. And it's not ZBandpass 2, but it is ZNotch2. But what it should be, until I get to it, is a low-pass filter. And sure enough, that is a low-pass filter. So the next thing to do is open up ZNotch itself. And then we're going to adapt that. We're going to adapt the relevant things in not YNotch, but ZNotch. What am I doing? Hang on. There we go. So the H file is not going to need changing because that's going to be about the same. Stuff like the version, we do indeed have it as ZNot, and so U is the next letter, so ZNOU is the correct ID for the next version. Some of this is going to be quite interesting and exciting, at least for me anyhow. We'll see what people make of the Twitch stream. I think that there could be some factors of coolness in there. Maybe I'm being very ambitious. I mean, one of the things I could do is like, okay, this is not exciting enough for you, check it out. Now it's much more exciting because the lights are flashing. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to see whether I can have like special effects going on, including I took down other flashing lights that I had around the ceiling of the room for sort of overall illumination, and I'm going to see whether I can't get some clear plastic tubes. I'm not sure whether it's like literally clear plastic tubes or whether I'm going to be looking for like white sort of ABS plastic tubes that are semi-transparent. And I'm going to run these light strips down them so that because they're sound activated light strips. And so I'm going to have these sort of light slashes going across my wall, and they'll respond to audio. And that's how that's going to work, is I will just have these funny sort of built-in stage scenery effects, and those will be doing their thing, including when I'm talking or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of exhausting. Let's put it back. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's my crowd is also fairly likely to be younger, and that also depends upon the overlap between, like, Umpha's crowd. I really, meeting Umpha and his people on Discord was very enlightening as far as what could transpire for me going over to Twitch, because I'll tell you something. I went over and visited them because they were reviewing the Surge synthesizer, and I've got code in the Surge synthesizer. They're using my plugins to expand the range of post effects they use. And turns out I go and visit Unfa's crew, and Unfa is a YouTuber and is notable for being really interested in open source music software. So it's a fairly natural match there. But they knew who I was and liked my reverbs and things. They don't like everything I do, but that's by intention. I do too many things for anybody to like all of it. And they don't have to agree with me as far as what I think is important. But I show up on that Discord server, and I'm greeted by people who are really happy to see me, and they're all, I believe, younger. And an emoticon of my face. I showed up on Unfa's Discord, and they greeted me with the :Chris emote, because they'd made an emote specifically because I'd made that catchphrase, "Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this," because that spoke so well to what they try to do. And I was very happy to learn that, and it really gave me a warm feeling inside. It also made me think, like, hey, if people get excited and start making emotes just because they like this one catchphrase, and granted, what I've dedicated my life to for the last 10 years, then maybe other places where people often do emotes will be a natural match. I don't know. Also, Twitch needs more of my energy. Twitch has too much, like, I don't know, Dr. Disrespect or whatever. People who just yell a lot, and who needs that? Twitch should have chill places to be as well. And they do have entire categories dedicated to people just chilling. Maybe that's more what, but I think I'm going to be more in the making music style of music production kind of thing. But there will be some overlap, because when I'm doing this stuff and actually like enjoying it and being comfortable with it and getting something out of it, the way that happens is by me being chill and comfortable with the crowd and so on. And it's really been like that for the most part. Anybody who comes and hangs out are probably not open source developers. If people who are open source developers are probably more likely to be off coding or be doing something else. Now, let me just start getting this stuff together. Here we go. We need to update that. That's our notch filter. We need to also update this. This is the way that we distort. And all of our stuff is based on a resonance, but the resonance is not necessarily always going to be Butterworth. ZNotch is not based on Butterworth. ZNotch is based on the golden ratio, because why not? There's no special reason this would be that much more important than like 0.5 or whatever, but it seemed to me that this was an accurate reflection of what I was hearing out of the real one. And so it's my little private joke to make it be literally the golden ratio to umpteen decimal places. Sometimes when you set up something, it winds up having a optimization where you're better off doing some kind of interesting constant. Now let me see. I'm going to move this over here for a moment. Here is where we need to update this. You can see that I'm going to move these over so that you can see it reasonably well. Kind of like that. So you can see that I've defined the biquad A. The resonant frequency is golden ratio. And now we're going down here, and this is the part of the filter. Not the for loop, but between these, here they're given IDs instead of numbers. These are just constants. These are enums, meaning that you can do the enums, and then if you add another one in anywhere, in the beginning or in the end or whatever, everything else in your code is going to update itself so that biquad AB0 is still going to refer to the same thing. It doesn't really matter what its identity is, you're referring to it by its function. And that is straight from Bacon Paul in the Surge Synthesizer forum. He was a little bit cautious about, he didn't want to tell me how to code because the way that I code I feel is pretty approachable for extreme raw newbies who didn't go to college. But all the same, he thought that using the enums would be better, and I have to say I completely agree with it. It makes stuff a little bit more self-documenting, and it makes it so that if you add other stuff, everything still works. And, Marquis Gerald Scott. Is Marquis a first name, or like would I be calling you Gerald, or would I be calling you Marquis? Is it a title? Are you actually a duke or lord of some sort? In any case, I like EDM as a hobby as well, and as far as the application is concerned, that's really kind of what I'm hoping to do when I move over to Twitch in 2022, is be sitting around. I've got some extra, this will probably work. I believe I have this set up so that this will work. See this thing here? I've decided that what I'm going to do is set the whole system up so that I can capture the output of the recording, which is currently what, like, I'm currently running just the microphone channel and patching it straight through to the stream. But when I switch over to Bespoke and start having lots of different things coming through the speakers and being recorded, what I'll be doing is running everything into that, but this does not. This is a battery-powered mic. I'm hoping to hell it doesn't just end up running out of juice. I wonder whether there is a special way to give it, not like this. These are micro XLR inputs, which is cool in its own way, but I do not see a place to put power in, although I suppose you could probably put a battery replacement thing in there. But if I turn this on so it lights up like this, and then I turn on mic 1, and I think I'm also going to have to, turn on the ATEM audio. Now I've got a sort of double effect here, because this has some internal processing, it has some compression and stuff going on, and if I use this, and also I'm running a whole mix through there and my voice is not going into the mix, I can capture the mix and then run this microphone as long as its battery doesn't run out. I suppose I could just get lots of 9-volt batteries and have those around. And then I'll be able to talk to chat without disrupting what I'm currently doing. So you can see I've got many plans ahead as far as doing this, and that's kind of taken from what Colin Benders does. Colin goes through these phases of doing a bunch of modular synthesizer live streams and then going heavily into like woodshedding and working on stuff, and he has difficulty keeping up consistent live streams, even though he has a pretty large audience, but he'll do them for a while and then you don't see him again for like 6 months. Well, I've been able to do more extended like live streams and jams and things like that, but I've not had my chops together to the point where anybody was really following it. Plus, I didn't have the responsiveness to an audience, or, you know, the production stuff to be able to hold a live stream. Like if you go back onto the Airwindows YouTube channel, there's been a lot of live streams. It's just that there's been a lot of live streams where I'm sort of gradually learning how to do this and that and the other thing. And I've learned a lot by now. So I'm probably going to dive back in and then just start plugging away doing that, because the secret is I need to be able to do it in such a way that I'm generating stuff that I can use as music, that I can like compose stuff, do things like here's another something. I've been coming up with these cards for generating arrangements from gamifying the generating of arrangements for pieces of music. And they could be really elaborate prog rock type stuff, or they could be fairly simple and it's just a prompt. A lot of people would like that. The reason I like it is because I need that kind of thing. But there's no reason I can't do that and start just consistently generating stuff that's pretty cool and okay. Now, speaking of stuff that's pretty cool and okay, I do need to do ZNotch, so let's see where we can get as far as that's concerned. And I have done the parameters, but now I need to make this biquad filter be a notch filter rather than a low-pass filter. So what we're going to do is look at some of these, like norm is the same in both, so that's fine. This one here needs to be updated so that instead of being k times norm, it's 1 plus k times norm. I often put parentheses in rather than just assuming that the precedence of operations is obvious to everybody, because like I am not as trained on this to be that certain that in C you evaluate the plus before the times or the times before the plus, so I won't necessarily know which one of these goes first. And that's why I often like putting, presumably it would be that the times is first before the plus, because then you get k times k, but you need to add the 1 to that and then multiply it by norm, which is why there are these parentheses there. If you didn't have these, it would do something else, something undesirable. And now let's see, we've got 2 times, okay, so A3 becomes A B1 or whatever. So instead of 2 times this, it becomes 2 times k minus 1. And that's also part of it. And then 4 becomes biquad A B0. And that's 2. And those line up visually about right. And then 5 becomes biquad A3. That's a change. So instead of this whole 2 times k, all of this kind of stuff, oh, hello, let's make those match. That actually is the same as this here. So that moved from one place to another. So we will copy this, and then that needs to go here, but it needs to not be AB0, it needs to be AB1. Because you can see these go sequentially, and that's where these are drawn from. 4 becomes 2, 5 becomes 3, so 2 becomes B0, 1 becomes... And note this says B, B1. These 3 are the initial part of the biquad. These are the post part of the biquad that happens after the filtering effect. It runs 2 separate little tiny delay loops. And then we've got 1.0 minus k divided by biquad A, and that's correct, plus k times norm. So that one actually didn't change at all. And then lastly, we're going to make sure that this other stuff didn't change. It looks the same to me. Trim looks the same to me. And the rest of this stuff seems to be about right. So next thing we're going to do is build this and see if it now is a notch filter. If we've successfully done that, I'm going to call the coding part of it a day, and we'll spend a little time just kind of setting up the Twitchified music thing, and you can see how long it takes me to get into that. So let's see, did I build it? Yes, I did. There it is. No issues. And that should give me, let's see, option drag here for copying it. A newer version called ZNotch. And if I put that into this Amen loop sessions thing, which you might just see that showing up at some point. We have just run a copy of this that acted exactly like ZLowPass2. Now, is it still like ZLowPass2? No, that is like ZNotch. It's got that slightly phasey quality to it. We've also got a lot of boost here, but that's fine. And that is good enough as far as I'm concerned. And that is now the final interpolated coefficient smooth Z filter, finishing out that project. That's our notch filter right there. And if we distort the crud out of it, we have that special tonality out of the Z filters. But this one's designed to be automated. And there you have it. I believe we are finished with that portion of... So now my question is, what else would be interesting to show? To the extent that I'm still hanging around doing any of this. One thing I can do is unplug this. And take a moment set the laptop over here. Just a minute. So that can sit over there. I'm going to reel this back over here. And yeah, rather than just automatically going into more editing things and stuff, here's an idea. I will put the chat window away. How about fooling around with Bespoke a little bit? Because there was something I wanted to set up in it. So the first thing we'll do is get the old blinking lights going. And I'm going to wait for a second and here. So here's what we're currently doing with this, is we are going to go to project. Can you see that? You can barely see it. I do have this little thingy for making this work. And we're going to do 130 BPM. And that's just to get the pulse going. Now you can see all the blinking lights are flashing away. I'll set this here for now. And let's put together, firstly, let's brighten this up a little bit and go to our funky techno madness. Here's another thing that I was going to do. Just give me a moment. And now we have funky techno madness land with more of our colorful mood lighting. And interesting thing about the way these camera works is I can basically still see pretty good. It's just that this is going to be a better background for overlaying Bespoke. And I'm probably going to want it, yeah, let me see. I have not chatted with Ben Jordan. I like some of his work. I don't like other bits of it. For instance, he got into NFTs and crypto stuff, which I don't think is wise. But he was also into helping people protect themselves from sonic weapons, and I'm very in favor of that. And yeah, Ben has often done this. In fact, he's a bit of an inspiration because I've seen him sit down and do a whole bunch of like diligent hard work on this kind of thing. And I feel kind of like, well, hey, if that's something that you can do, I can do that kind of thing as well. So let's start doing exactly that. First things first. Bespoke Synth. Now I'm going to pick this up and get ready to switch over to the other mic. Let's turn it on. At some point I'm going to find out how long that thing runs. But right now what we're doing is we're loading up this. And yeah, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Don't mind that. We'll get this all together. For now, let's bring up that bespoke screen. And if I do this, and yeah, I can just barely see the chat window. Tell you what, let's pop that out for now, and since I don't have a good way of displaying it, what we're going to do is make it tiny. That's as narrow as I can make it, and that's as much of it as I can see. But I can have it overlap a little bit. That's fine too. Okay, let's go and find that chat window. But first, how about dealing with this? Now I have something where I can take the other mic off and just use this one. So that's definitely going to be what the Twitch thing is often. The Twitch thing is often going to be like that, just sort of derping around, doing stuff, and this might well be the configuration. I got to figure out better ways of hanging this, or places to put it or something. But yeah. What would be a good place? Can I hang it on a guitar? Can I hang it on the... Nope, doesn't reach that far. Can I make a little place to put it where it can't hear anything? And then just for example, we're going to set that kind of off the screen. I don't think I'm going to do this for very long, but point being, this is what I'm going to try to do as far as getting this stuff together. So we've got a bass part, and a chord part, and a lead, which is not actually updating its pitch at all at the moment. And a high chord. So what's going on with this is, and I'm definitely going to need a screen where I can see chat. There's no question about it. What I'm seeing right now isn't going to make it. But this is a picture of what it might become like. And with these controls, here, So the stuff that we're looking at here, here's the bass, here's the low chord, this is the high chord, and this is the lead instrument. There's also a second lead that I'm not using and a breakbeat. And those are being run by this. Now, let's see. So firstly, let's find some of these things. Like, here is the bass, and we can do various things like this bass is going into a wasp filter. So that's what's causing this to happen. This is the kind of stuff you can do with a wasp style filter. It's based on a 4049 hex inverter. So you can distort it quite hard. And this little control that I'm fiddling with here is pulse width. So that's more of a square wave. And it will all go all the way to a pulse wave at a very, very, very high sample rate. This is like a megahertz of sample rate. This top knob here is a Portamento. You can hear it doing that. And this is the same as this, but we haven't updated that yet. That's this one here. And that's running into the dry wet, so you can see the controls manipulating on the surface there. Here is our replace control for galactic, and here is our dry wet. So we've got these two things going on. And here's our Portamentos. Or we can make them much quicker. And this is going to do the same thing. Yeah, except for this guy's just stopped. The way this particular thing works is if I tell the square wave / pulse wave to be too weird, it'll sometimes cut out. So that could probably use a little debugging. I'm not exactly sure what's causing that. Now, what is also happening to that mid-range sound, unlike the bass, which is that wasp filter, so you can distort that and it can do some fairly strange things. that mid-range sound is going into a Three Sisters, which is something I've been wanting for a lot of years, honestly. And what that does is it's running that mid-range sound into a kind of triple filter thingy. And I'm taking the outputs of the filter separately as well, so that I can put different reverbs on them. And if I set it at the narrowest possible bandwidth, then the mid-range is very tightly set. Whereas if I turn this and broaden the Three Sisters mid-range section, it can take up much more space. Now, what else is that Three Sisters doing? The reason I got it is because it is able to take 3 inputs and give 3 outputs, but do a complete like frequency divider thing. So what's also going through it is these chords. And that's LC, that's low chords. Same controls except for that we have different options on this. So same Portamento, except for its chords this time. It's playing more notes, but it's at a lower sample rate, whereas the monophonic ones are at a very, very high sample rate. This is more like 300K. And the chord ones, the lower thing, instead of being the pulse width of the square wave, is the distance between the chorus effect that it can produce. And 0 is no chorus effect. So we can put a nice little chorus on there. That's also running into the Three Sisters. So you can roll it off really low. The mid-range one is now kind of low, and that bass chords are now very low. And you can turn it up very high, at which point the mid-range band is very high and the low frequency one is expanded about as far as it'll go. There's a Q factor one for this, which also affects the mid-range. So that's basically the resonance of that mid-range band. But it's the resonance of all of these at the same time. And if you turn that right down, everything has like no resonance whatsoever, and everything is kind of coming through full range. This other control, it will determine whether all of the settings are literally the same or whether they're more spread out. So we can make it so that that mid-range band is in the mids, but the lows are being rolled off lower. And I could probably do with a bit of an attenuator here to kind of dial it back, because I have a sloths here which is able to give me very slow evolving changes, but I'm not necessarily going to want to put big voltage changes into here. The changes it's going to want are very minor. So I kind of need to be able to tone it back. I need to be able to turn down, and patch cords that with a lot of resistance would also do that, like patch cords that were attenuator patch cords would do that. I don't have those at the moment, but I could make them fairly easily. But what's the remaining thing? This chord, and that is our HC, or high chord. Same deal, we can pick different settings. We can do Portamento. The duration of that is being set by Just Friends. And then the lower knob for that one is, again, the chorus. So that's a pretty freaky effect to throw in there. And since that's the high band of Just Friends, the higher up I roll it, the more that noise is just high frequency noises. Which also begs the question, maybe I can do something else interesting with it, like have a hi-hat on there. So let's give that a try. We'll grab a yellow patch cord for the hi-hat. We'll switch that Euclidean circles over to the setting for let's see, trig. There you go. And so now we're setting that off. And what we should do is, instead of taking this output, let's take another yellow patch cord. Here's our high frequency setting, and here is the output. And we can quite clearly hear that we're running the high frequency thing into a reverb. By the way, we have another hat. No, that's the hat. It's acting a little funny, but that's fine. And I'll tell you why. It's because it has the sustain on it. Now, the rhythms that we were getting are coming off of these. They're touring machines. And so I had just left them on, so they were just holding what they started out with. Let's take another yellow patch cord. Patch it into 3 of this. Or no, I have a better idea. Let's patch it into one of these outputs instead. This is another Euclidean circles that's being triggered off of the first one. And we're going to make it Actually, that's not doing a very good job of what I wanted it to do, so let's go and find something else. This cable should be plugged into something that's extending the range of that hat. Also, let's not have this be on the reverb anymore. Now, what was that? That's going to be, I think, this one. If I shut it off, I have no output anymore. Oh, but I do want it to run into that, but I want the output to go. There we go. So this is my mini shimmery. That is a so we can do various things with this. Let's make it even more complicated. It's doing a little bit of an open hat thing, although it's not really hanging onto it for very long. We have an accent, and that changed the sound of it a little bit. Now we have a little accenting. And if we set the Three Sisters upright, we can have a nice trebly hat going on. Now we've got another control here. That we can plug into something else. We no longer have our high chord because the hat is now doing that. Although there is a further trick I could do there too. In fact, let's totally do that further trick. Know how we have this hat here now? And that's actually an orange cable, but no Mickey. And if I plug that in, Let's plug that into B. We'll plug this into A of this switch. And we'll plug the output of the switch to... Now if I hit this switch, and that's playing very rarely, so let's make it do something more interesting. That's not as interesting as I'd hoped. Well, let's grab an orange patch cord for this next bit. And see, this is supposed to be triggering this thing, although technically we don't actually need the just friends to do that. That's just giving me a chord envelope, but I don't need the envelope because I'm doing something that is not dissimilar to what the hat is doing, so let's make it much more active. So there's a hat, and it alternates between this, although we can have them be different tempos. So there is, here, let's... Here is this section. I have no idea whether anybody is still here. I'm going to have to improve my capacity for chat and stuff, but I have some ideas with that regard. In fact, I think I know where I can put the... I believe I can put the chat window and monitor right there. That'll be good enough. So there is our chord. And so now we have a matching riff on both of those, although they don't have to be. I can make it be different. And let's take one more patch cable. And see if that reaches. We want CV from here. And now we have a sort of funky alternating thing going on here, which switches around. Now note we've had the same chord progression going on this whole time. We can change that. The chord progression is being generated by this Turing machine. So firstly, let's see where we're getting that tempo. It's being generated by this output. And this output. So now we're down at a very low pitch thing going on. And that little melody riff is being generated by this. So that is cycling off of this Turing machine. And the melody is coming from this thing called Clep Diaz, which is a arpeggiator. But wait, there's more. You hear this going on? And this is what I had on the plugin post. The kick drum and the bass are being generated by the same Turing machine, which I don't technically have to do. Like, check this out. Here's what's driving the kick drum. I can plug it into something else. For instance, and that is the timing running off of a sort of prime number thing, which is maybe not so desirable. So that's more of a regular beat. I'm going to take a moment and peek at, like, I know I don't have any chat, and I might have lost literally everybody here, but let's see what's up here. So I'm still sending. Oh, no, wait. No, I'm not still sending. Okay, never mind. Okay, so this is why I need to practice this. Let me just amend something here. Guess what? You can hear all of this now. See, these are the things I have to get sorted out before I actually stream. Just as well I didn't try to launch using that. So, back to here. No, let's get back to this. Oh my god, there are 5 people here. How are you still here after I just gave you silence for half an hour? This is what we're doing. I guess you just like the sound of my voice, right? So this is what I've been talking about this entire time. This is what I was getting on about to start with. Here's a bass. Bass is running through a wasp filter. That's what makes this sort of cool grungy effect here. We also have a chord here. And I have a lead, which is currently going like gangbusters. It's running off of this. And then I have one of these. And that is the sort of, hang on, I can make this work better. So we've got this thing, and it is switching back and forth between a chord and a hi-hat, and all of that is being done by these various sequences. Meanwhile, I also made a kick drum. My apologies for not giving you audio this entire time. That was a bit of a drag. Would have been much more interesting if I was playing audio. No wonder nobody said anything. Next time, like, go all caps and be like, dude, we can't hear your music. And here I can make it go much higher. Although it does make it a little bit funny, operating the cycle effects thing that I intended it to be. And that's something that I have to fix. Switching should still work. So we'll leave the node stuff alone for now. I'll be able to go and repair it later. It's a kind of an interesting jam, isn't it? And the light that's shown here should be sending different voltages into the chord selection. Honestly, the whole thing feels kind of sketchy to me. We have a breakbeat going on, which is currently very reverbed out. Being driven by this is picking the and instead trigger it off the tape. In fact, we can also do the position. Rather than that. And so now this is kind of evolving itself. output of some kind. And now we've got a sort of self-playing patch. Assuming we're still streaming and we actually have audio, which let me go and check that. So this is what you would call modular self-playing patch. That being something that I can try to do streams about. Yep, stream. Oh, that's pretty good. Now my hope is that with some of my bespoke work, I can have it be a little more interesting than just that. But I do like playing with the self-playing patch. And the interesting thing about this is if I was recording this, and I could. In fact, let me try to do that right now. Just to record the test. That looks a whole bunch like what I'm supposed to be recording, but it does not have my voice. So yeah, just for fun, we're going to hang out in this zone for a little bit, and I'm going to give it maybe another couple of minutes or so and call it a day. But this is the test. By the way, here's another thing. I know the mic is really soft. I can't actually change that. I've tried. It's turned up as much as I can. So what you're seeing there is a meter that I did for the purpose of being able to mix stuff more effectively and have it sounding good. And you'll be seeing more about that in 2022. This thing called Airwindows Juice Toy example. There's stuff that I mean to be doing using that technology. But for now, I know it's difficult to make out what I'm saying. We'll try to improve that in future. You want to avoid feedback, of course, too. I'm basically going to try to get a microphone that can be fed into the ATEM loud enough so that I can talk to chat over the sound of music. Because right now we're recording what this is doing, but my voice isn't going into that. And I can bring the voice voice into what I'm doing, but then it would feedback. And again, I still do not have chat visible on screen because of the realities of all this and getting it together. But I thought it would be nice to sort of derp around, and this is the kind of thing I'm looking to be doing on Twitch once we get that rolling. And into the highest speed. How's that for an up-tempo bit? Yeah, I could get used to sitting here doing this kind of stuff. That's a nice little groove. Just a little bit. Got into a sort of dub techno space. drone on in the background. And let's fade out the beat. I think we're going to bring this plane in for a landing. Seems like a thing. Let's go. Alrighty. So my hope is I can do that kind of stuff. Oh god, my video is going to be all blurry because it was all in the wrong camera. Well, live and learn, I guess. So that'll do for the end of my little stream. Yeah, I am actually looking to do Restream, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be using that to go onto YouTube. Also, if I actually do find any success in Twitch, they'll start demanding that I not go to YouTube. So I'm not sure what to make about that, but we'll see. So on that note, I'm going to call it a day. And, I wish I could solve this problem with the audio. I'm not sure if I can. I can fool with it a little bit. Let me see whether I can do something here. I could do a regulation gain plugin and see whether I can make that do a thing. How much do they give me? How about an even 6 dB? That's definitely a little bit louder, so I might be able to come across better on the back of that. At least it's not clipping, but you might be able to hear me a little bit more. And we'll close that and build that into the ATEM. And on that note, that's been a really weird session, but I guess it's a good enough trial run, and we'll see. And the thing about Restream is that if I can make the chat thing work, I'll be able to see chat from both Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And at that point, it's a matter of whether, like, Twitch gets fussy, and honestly, they don't care about me, so they won't have a complaint. Let's stop that recording. And it's about 30 minutes of stuff, so I'll see whether there's anything in there that I can get. And it won't have any of this talking on it, so there's that. Talk to you folks later. It's been an interesting test. Bye-bye.